Hey everyone, Dustin here. Just wanted to make a quick spring, early summer update, mainly talking about Leah Thomas and this whole swimming uh, policy, and just kind of share my thoughts and, from my experience of detransitioning and, what those hormones feel like, and basically just kind of my thoughts around this whole sort of debate, which really shouldn't be a debate in my mind. I agree with the sentiments of, the board, and put a social media post together and kind of shared my thoughts. And, I kind of have, it's such an interesting time we live in for people like myself, like Leah, and, living as a trans identified woman for 10 years of my life. It created a lot of insight for myself to have maybe a wider perspective. And being a very athletic person, growing up in sports, competing in sports, has really taught me a lot about inclusion, collaboration, teamwork, acceptance in that sort of K through 12, even on the collegiate level, framework. And it was really valuable. It's been valuable. I've drawn from those experiences and implemented some of those teachings and lessons throughout my life. And, it's about sports at that level is about those lessons and inclusion, especially for somebody identifying as a trans person. It's all about inclusion, and that's much more important than winning. Minority communities have always been kind of pertaining to, athletics. There was a time where, people of color weren't included on some of these athletic opportunities, within these athletic opportunities before, we broke down those barriers. And it's really important to differentiate a youth athletic program, even some collegiate intramural programs. And then, once an athlete, which can profit based off of their trajectory and their skills, athletics inherently are created as a platform to showcase your physical fair advantages and leverage those advantages and navigate through the sort of sequence of bringing your athletic skills to the masses. And the apex of that is professional sports and Olympic sports. And so as an individual kind of graduates and moves forward, those physical fair advantages are going to be more important, because the stakes are going to be higher and you're going to be able to profit off of those. And not only monetary value, but also social value, social standing, notoriety. There's a lot of different forms of profit. And so I do think that Leah has a tremendous advantage, where her advantages compared to other women were gained through her experience as a trans person. She experienced a male puberty, and testosterone exposure allowed her to realize and gain those advantages in a way that women assigned at birth, biological women, I say that term loosely, but trying to be respectful and mindful, those women don't have that advantage. There was a story a while ago about an African, I think she was African or Jamaican track star that she had higher levels of androgen in her body. She was assigned female at birth. She was, she had higher levels of androgens in her body, and that was a natural derivative of her chemistry and what made her her. And those are natural influxes of her hormonal profile. The decision was that I think they decided, and please leave a comment if I'm wrong, but like she couldn't race because she had a natural advantage over other women, and her naturally occurring levels of testosterone were higher than what was allowed in the framework of that sport within her category of racing as a woman. I think that was completely wrong. Like sports should celebrate those differences in a way that is natural and important to the celebration of our individualism and our differences. In terms of Leah, she transitioned after experiencing that male puberty, testosterone exposure, all of the physical advantages that testosterone has for people, for men or over women, or trans women over men that experience that puberty. And she needs to understand that. Like, that's the reality of biology. And that's like, I understand, like, it sucks because, she's a swimmer and she wants to experience her sport, but there are ways she can still compete and be mindful of those advantages. And it kind of is frustrating because she should realize, like, her success winning is attributed to these unfair advantages that she gained. And we don't, we really need to further understand how to measure and quantify these differences. And my partner and I, we kind of like did this whole exercise where it's like throwing out some ideas, spitballing of, the top rated woman in the country in your age category and in your respective sport should kind of define the baseline of, like, okay, this is the heart rate, this is the circulation, this is the bone density, this is the muscle mass, these are all of the differences. This is the work ethic, because there's not only physical advantages, there's also an individual's work ethic and how much they're willing to commit. And no doubt Leah probably works her ass off to maintain that level of competition, but she has to realize, like, she has advantages that other women don't have. And to deny that is completely wrong. And it tarnishes the movement of, bringing this movement forward, bringing more visibility and more universal acceptance of people within the LGBT, specifically the trans community. And I hope, one day that we have more measurements. I'm a huge advocate for youth athletes that identify as trans to, have a hormonal regimen that reflects their identity, because as they navigate through their respective sport, they won't feel invalidated. They won't feel that pressure. They won't feel that ridicule. They'll just be competitors. And hopefully we can adopt more granularity within mental health care and pediatric care for trans youth so that we can make sure that they're getting accurate health care and they're getting accurate, genuine, care throughout their transition. And that's the biggest thing is like transition, it's transition. And this is maybe a little controversial, but transition, in my opinion, is not a destination. Trans inherently means across, and it's a verb. I mean, it's a process. And for Leah, she identifies as a trans woman, but that process of reduced muscle mass, in her interview, she mentioned something about like shrinking and like getting smaller feet and like all of those things. Well, that may be true, but that takes a time. And 1 year on hormones and testosterone blockers is not enough. I know from experience. I was in college when I transitioned and became, I was on hormones for a year or two before that, and I played basketball and soccer, and I got my butt kicked, but there is a source of strength you can draw from that is muscle memory that you can pull from that when you're in competition if you're taking estrogen and testosterone androgen blockers. Like you can still draw from that grit and that strength, that because you had a higher range of mobility and strength than than biological women. And yes, like my muscle mass and like my weight shifted and all that, but there was still like that muscle memory that I could pull from. And that really didn't change until like 4 or 5 years after I 4 or 5 years after I transitioned fully to female. And so that also needs to be looked at until we have wider acceptance of youth and teens being administered puberty blockers and hormones. We need to really make sure that as a competitor, we need to make sure like the competitors are competing on a fair playing field. And if our medical advancements one day will expedite these transitions, or will adopt new models of measuring those advantages and quantifying those advantages, then we need to realize like we're in this process of learning as a society of another minority community that needs to be respected, but we need long-term solutions and we need short-term solutions that are understood so these issues of unfair competition is further eroded away into nothing. But unfortunately for people today, contemporary trans athletes are the ones that can help inform these policies by acknowledging some of the realities of biology. And it sucks, and I understand that, but that's the reality. And so I hope you all understand where my heart is, and I'm definitely a big supporter of the trans community, but I think that we could do a much better job of just expressing our needs without imposing on other people, so that we can all have much more acceptance and understanding and empathy and compassion. And instead of looking at the individual, let's look at the community on a macro level and say, hey, like how can we move this forward without a way of bringing negative light to the community, and especially in the domain of athletics. So hope you're all well. Please leave your thoughts. I'll do better at making these videos. I've been super busy with just life, and I hope to make a personal update video in the coming weeks. Thanks guys, take care, bye-bye.